Hi, you've tuned in to Radio Northern Beaches, your Listen Local station, right here on the Northern Beaches of Sydney. You can find us on your radio dial at 88.7 and 90.3 FM. Can't get to a radio? No worries. You can always stream our program live from anywhere in the world at rnb.org.au. And for listening on your own schedule, our podcasts are available globally at rnbpodcast.com.au. So be sure to follow and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Now, here is our latest podcast.
You're listening to Spin the Globe with Caryn Ship, and with me is a very special guest, once Commodore of the Avalon Sailing Club. Welcome to Radio Northern Beaches, Ralf Moller.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for coming. So, Ralf, for those who don't know the club or have never ventured on the Pittwater or Clareville Beach, and I find that hard to believe from Northern Beaches locals, but anyhow, where is Avalon Sailing Club located?
Yeah, now you say that, and I reckon less than half the people who live in Avalon know that there is even an Avalon Sailing Club. And it's not like we're keeping it secret on purpose, but I always think, we do live on the northern beaches and we are very focused on the beaches, and people are always talking about the beaches and surfing, and our beaches are stunning, but I always like to say they're not exactly rare. I believe we have about 20,000 in Australia, whereas Pittwater, on the other hand, is just incredible. Like it's so unique. What I always like to do, especially with overseas guests, even people from Sydney, open up Google, have a look, and you have a look at Pittwater, Broken Bay, the Lower Hawkesbury, and even Brisbane Water in Gosford.
Yes.
And most people don't realise that it's a lot bigger than Sydney Harbour.
Yeah, it is accessible from the Pittwater, though, all those places.
All of it.
Yeah.
And, not only is it bigger than Sydney Harbour, but it's almost completely surrounded by beautiful national park.
Yeah.
So, it really is an extraordinary piece of paradise, and I think very, very unique. We're so lucky to live here.
Yeah, but all these places, unless you go out on the water, you would never know they existed or they were so accessible by boat.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we joke, actually. We say, whoever came up with Ku-ring-gai Chase National Park obviously put it together for boaties, because it's just about the only way you can see most of it. Yeah,
that's right. Some of the places still don't have, some of them don't have electricity, or it's boat access only. Some of the islands that are, even up at Barara, there's a few places you can only get there by boat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And our little spot, I should say, Avalon Sailing Club, we're on Clareville. We're not on Clareville Beach, so those that know Pittwater, the club's actually between Clareville and Paradise Beaches, just off Hudson Parade, where the Clareville shops are.
Okay.
And we got a little clubhouse there. That area of Pittwater between Scotland Island and Avalon, they say, is known as the pond. And we're right in front of the pond. So just a little sailing club, but we've got the best spot on Pittwater.
And how deep do you think that pond is?
I believe it's 16.7 metres or something like that.
It's not that deep.
Yeah, 60 feet at the most in old language.
Yeah,
20 metres is about as deep as it ever gets anywhere in Pittwater.
So you don't get snagged on the bottom in the middle. I've heard people getting caught up on low tide, where they've moored their boat and suddenly the tide goes in and there they are with their anchor or their keel caught in the...
It gets very shallow behind Palm Beach, so Station Beach. That's really shallow.
You've got to watch out there.
Yeah.
So talking about the club, what does the club offer, if you want to become a member of a sailing club and learn to sail?
What does it offer? So first of all, people think yacht clubs, they think, multi-storey places with marinas and all these very expensive yachts. That's not us. We've got that down at the RPA and the Royal Motor.
Yeah.
We're one of those, I'm going to say, classic / historic kind of shed on the water. So, actually almost literally. So, the place was built back in the 40s, and it is almost literally a shed. So we've got the boats stored downstairs. Upstairs we've got a big hall. There's a canteen. change rooms, that sort of thing. And look, our purpose, the reason the club was built, was actually for the kids. So it was to teach the kids to sail. So it's still our purpose. The kids are the main reason for being there. But, of course, the parents want to sail too. So
Absolutely.
So we've got kids sailing dinghies. So we use terms that I'm not sure people always, I'll try and translate anything that's too boaty, right? But dinghies, sometimes referred to as centreboards. These are these little boats that, something you could put on the roof of your car or a trailer, like a laser.
That have 2 oars, dinghies. No, dinghy class, different.
Yeah, it's confusing. All nautical talk is confusing. But the smaller boats, right? So spirals and lasers. So we have people sailing those, but a number of parents, myself being one of those as well, also have yachts.
Yep.
So, we've got kind of liquish all sorts. We'll talk a bit more about that. But, we're, social. We do cruising as well, so not everybody's into racing. So cruising tends to be, going a few boats up the river, stay overnight, and that sort of thing. We host the club does get... we sometimes host events. We certainly have a lady called Meredith Rasdell. She's quite well known in the area. She does art classes every Thursdays.
Oh, cool. Down by the water, so you can obviously sketch the boats, the beautiful water scenes. And
that does come up a lot, yes.
I'll bet. That's the main theme.
We've been hosting book launches and stuff like that from Buccacino as well. So
yeah, good.
That sort of stuff.
Nice. It's quite the social affair.
Yes.
Yeah, and can anyone join?
Anyone can join. Anyone can join. So, we take them from probably 5 years old, and I think our oldest members are definitely in their 80s.
Oh, good to hear.
Yeah, all the way through.
Good to hear. You're listening to Radio Northern Beaches, and my wonderful interview with Ralf here from the Avalon Sailing Club, paradise on the Pittwater, as I call it. So I must ask you about the different classes of boats. What different classes of boats that sail from the club? Can you kind of outline a few? Yeah,
sure. I'll start with the kids. Our kids, actually, they learn in what we call nippers. They're Ian Murray designed nippers. So any sailors out there will go, oh, Ian Murray, who, by the way, lives about 10 doors up from us as well.
Oh, he's an Avalon local.
He's an Avalon local, as are so many sailors. The kids go, they do Manly Juniors, Open Skiffs and Flying 11s. They're excellent boats. We've been very deliberate about what we choose. Our adult sailors in the dinghy sail spirals, lasers and arrows. So if you've got one of those and you're looking for some sailing action on a Sunday, then come and join us. We've also got one member, Graham Vick, he restores old boats, and he's got a vintage Moth. So it's one of the most beautiful things you've ever seen. He sails it every Sunday, so he restores them and sails them. Then we have our yachts. It's a really interesting mix, actually. We've got about 6 Etchells, and Etchells they're an iconic 30-foot one design yacht. Small, 30-footer, 3 people. They're often, I've heard people refer to them as kind of mini 12-metre yachts, so 12-metre yachts being, the good old America's Cup when Australia 2 won. Wow. Sounds expensive, and I know America's Cup always is, but actually Etchells are very, very affordable. So you can get a good Etchell for as little as $5,000. Get 2 mates together, 3 of you all together, and be out there and really sailing. You decide how serious or how fun, but in a really cool boat. Then we've got the Cooters. Now, Cooters are really iconic. Larry Eastwood really is the man who drives these classic boats on Pittwater, and he's one of the Cooter owners. And they're called Cooters. Mm-hmm. They come from Melbourne from the 1850s. They built these boats as barracuda fishing boats. Wow. And they've got great big bellies. So the idea was that they'd go out, get a boat full of fish, and the first boat back to market would get the best price for the fish. Nice. So they're beautiful gaff-rigged boats, and we've got half a dozen of those. Perfect. And then we've got, what we call our production yachts. So, 30 to 40 foot Benettos, Genos, Hunsies, that sort of thing. So, quite an eclectic mix.
Yeah, sounds good. So that's the run of them?
That's our boats, yeah.
And you've got to tell me, what first inspired you to take up sailing?
Me? Growing up in Sydney, I think we all live so close to the water. And my dad loved messing about on boats. I loved messing about on boats. We always had motorboats, though. And it wasn't until I was at high school and windsurfers came out. And I just happened, a bunch of friends had windsurfers, and one of my best friend just happened to live on the water, and everyone left their windsurfer there. And so we'd always go to his place. And that's how I learnt to sail.
Wow.
And, anyone who sailed, I think just the whole feeling of it, the wind's transporting you, you don't need a motor. There's something very special, dare I say, spiritual, if you like, about sailing. It certainly hooked me in, and I think it hooks a lot of people in.
Yeah, the water being so powerful and being carried by the wind, which also has its own power indeed.
Yeah.
And when did you first become Commodore of the Sailing Club? You must have earned that title, surely.
Well, like just about everyone at the club, I started at the club because of the kids. All right, I took my 2 kids down there to learn to sail. And it's a volunteer club. And, my happiest memories really were, being out on the water on Sunday mornings, watching the kids learn to sail. Just glorious. I put my hand up to be club captain. I've been on the committee. I think I've been on the committee for about 10 years. And last year, a few years ago, I said, look, guys, when I retire, when I give up work, I'll do the Commodore. And so I put my hand up and took that role 3 years ago. And I've done my 3 years.
Oh, good on you. Tick.
Tick, yeah. No, look, it's really important to have new blood and refresh the role. So that's kind of our policy. You do your 2 or 3 years. Someone else does the job. Makes it easy for people to put their hand up because they think, I just do my 2 years or my 3 years. And every Commodore brings a different vibe or a different focus,
Absolutely.
And it's really important. Keeps the club
So who's taken over just recently, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, just recently. Curiously, she's almost a neighbour. She's about 4 doors down from me. Helena Vanderlind, and she sails. She sails a spiral.
Yes.
And her husband Gary, he's often on a cooter. So, their kids both learnt to sail at the club. She's been involved in the club for a very long time.
Shout out to Helena and Gary.
Indeed.
Yeah. So we can call you an old salt then, can we?
Well, you see,
not so old.
I'm not sure I've earned that. I think I haven't really spent time in the ocean. So, yeah, I might be old enough, but maybe not salty enough, not yet.
Yeah, fair enough.
More just a sailing tragic, I think.
Being a storytelling segment, I would have to ask, what's your greatest challenge out in the ocean? Do you have any stories to share of big swells or green water over the bow?
I'm going to say not really. I've certainly been out to sea and up and down the coast a little bit, but... yeah, we've, I think, always been quite careful to avoid the nasty weather.
That's a smart move.
and so, therefore, not really any terribly interesting stories about being offshore, no.
Well, what about going overboard? Would there be a story to tell on that?
Hang on, I'll just take a glass of water. No, clearly not. But there is a rumour... about an incident that might have happened a while back, which I'd reluctantly share. But yes, apparently, or what do we call it? Allegedly. There might have been an incident where I had some actually work friends on the boat, and the dinghy. So now we are talking about the rowing dinghy that we're using to get back and forward. Was being towed behind the boat, and the oar was about to fall off into the water, right? And it was it's not just any oar; it's the oar specific for the boat, right?
Of course.
Now, one of the guys said, "Look, I can steer the boat," and I said, "All right, well, if you can just we'll put the motor on, just point the boat into the wind so it doesn't really move much. I'll pull the dinghy up and just secure the oar and get back in the boat. And allegedly. As I jumped into the dinghy and was just about to I secured the oar. I think I was standing up though. And suddenly there was this almighty jerk on the rope, and allegedly I went straight overboard. As big as, honestly, I was in the water looking up, watching my boat sail away.
They did see that happen, didn't it?
Yeah. And I was looking at the dinghy and I thought, God, I could not believe what was happening. But thankfully the brain worked, and I felt I had one chance to lunge at the dinghy. So it had like little ropes. I thought if I can grab it, I'll be okay. But if I can't, this is going to get really bad, actually. And so to the music of Raiders of the Lost Ark, I swam like I've never swum before. Weren't many strokes involved.
Yeah.
Just got a hand on it, pulled myself in. Pulled myself back in the boat. I've never been so embarrassed.
Mate.
I got back in, so...
Look,
allegedly, sorry, this is as rumour has it.
Look, if it did happen, then it might have happened this way.
Makes for a good story anyway.
Incredible. So what's the drill if you do lose your footing and end up in the drink?
Yeah, look, it's really serious, actually. They're proper drills, and people, you do practice these things. I always say to people when they get on the boat, my kids hate the safety drill talk when strangers come on the boat, but I always do it. Good. And, the key thing is to say, look, when someone does go overboard, like everybody else on the boat, like scream out, man overboard.
Yep.
Point at the person in the water and do not take your eyes off the person on the water and do not stop pointing. And let the skipper and the crew steer the boat and manage the sails and everything else to get back. So, because the worst thing that happens, and it happens very quickly, is you just lose sight of the person in the water.
Oh, yes, so easy.
Right? Yeah. So that's the key thing. Pulling the person out of the water is difficult, and there's a whole process around that. But, if you're on a boat, someone goes overboard, just scream at the skipper and do not take your eyes off the person in the water.
Follow the drill and trust your crew will help you get back on the boat.
That's it.
That's the only way. So at the end of the day, I suppose there's a social aspect to sailing back to the clubhouse for a cold one or a warm toddy, depending on the season.
Look, I'm sure as you and the listeners can imagine, sailing is a very thirsty sport.
I'd imagine.
There's a lot of wind, and you're in the sun and the elements, and
dehydration.
You've got to be really careful, right? And yes, of course, the club. We're so fortunate in that where the club is, it faces west over Pittwater, so it looks out over the pond.
Gorgeous.
And the sun is setting over the national park on the other side, and we've got a beautiful veranda and deck, quite a large fridge. And, it's just glorious to sit there and have a cold drink at the end of the day.
Isn't that Lovett Bay on the other side?
It is,
yes. I know. I'm lucky to have that view from our place. So. Going back into storytelling, are there any stories of intrepid sailors that have inspired you, Ralf?
Look, I think me in particular, but I actually think everyone, any of those sailors that have headed off in a boat over the horizon, that I always think that's incredible, and especially those in the old days that headed off without a map of where they were going. Can you imagine what that must have been like?
Steering by the stars, perhaps? No stars. Daytime.
But Captain Cook and Magellan, and so many incredible stories. But I think these days, what is really blowing my mind are the round the world solo sailors in their remockers. So for those of you who don't see or know what this is like, these are 60 or 70 foot boats. They are sailing solo non-stop around the world. And what that means is they start in Europe, they go down the Atlantic, and then they basically sail around through the Southern Ocean, because that's the quickest way to sail around the world, and then back up the Atlantic.
Yeah.
And single-handed, like, think about it. It's insane.
Can't imagine.
These boats have now got foils on them, and so they're doing 30 to 35 knots, so that's about 70 kilometres an hour.
Coming out of the water.
Yeah, and the thing was that there was never any footage of this. So, they've been sailing around the world for decades, and you would occasionally get grainy footage from a Navy helicopter of a few boats in the Southern Ocean. Whereas what's happening these days is technology is every boat. Well, these guys have all got drones.
Of course.
And may have their iPhones attached to them or whatever. But so they're all taking footage now of themselves in the Southern Ocean. And the footage is just extraordinary. And it's all on YouTube, right? So the thing about sailing is there's very little of it that gets shown on TV or, free to air, even the pay for sports channels, America's Cup and stuff like that you can see. But there is so much sailing on YouTube. So, if you're remotely interested, you can find everything on YouTube.
Yeah, they had the Sail GP in Sydney Harbour just recently. So.
Right. Yeah.
I was lucky enough to work on it, so I know about it.
Oh.
That's right. So getting back to Avalon, it obviously has a history. When did it first open?
Yeah, look, the club was started in the 30s So Clareville was a holiday place. People who lived in the city,
a holiday home,
the eastern suburbs and probably lower North Shore would come up to Clareville for their summer holidays. And the kids, actually the parents would build their sailing boats out of wood. They had kits or designs. In those days, they were mainly VJs, Vaucluse Juniors.
VJs.
And they would race them off Clareville Beach. And by 1947, apparently there were 27 VJs. So that's like times two, so that's 50 kids plus all their parents and, setting up races. And they were running this all off Clareville Beach. And, of course, everybody still needs to have a shower, get changed, go to the toilet, grab something to eat, and they'd be running into one or two people's houses, right? And it was just getting a bit out of hand. So they said, we've got to build a clubhouse. That's what we've got to do. And so they banded together, got permission from the council, was all put together with volunteer labour and, they all chipped in, money and building materials and the rest of it and built the clubhouse.
As was needed, that's right.
As was needed,
the laws of necessity. I believe boat and yacht racing had been held in Sydney Harbour for many years. What was Avalon's part in that history?
Yeah, look, I'm going to extend that a little to Pittwater, actually.
Pittwater, okay.
Paradise that is Pittwater.
Pittwater.
I think the first thing which is kind of interesting is that the Australia Day Regatta has been running since 1837, obviously started in the harbour, but it is the oldest continuously sailed regatta in the world.
Yeah.
And these days in Australia, it is sailed all around the country, not just in the harbour. And at Avalon, we happen to be the hosts for the Australia Day Regatta on Pittwater.
Pittwater, okay.
And it's open to all. So, if you've got a sailing boat, and even if you only sail it one day a year, that's a good day because it's social and it's fun. So that's our little piece, if you like, of that sailing history. But, so much of Australia's sailing history is in some way connected with Pittwater or with people who live on Pittwater. And
yeah. So you're talking about the three gentlemen that used to race each other in the Pittwater. That story you tell so well, Ralf. Come on.
Well, so those of you who probably everyone's been to the basin. Anyone who lives on the northern beaches, I hope, has been to the basin. Well, opposite the basin, you'll see a bunch of holiday houses. Actually, people live there permanently as well, and it's called Coasters Retreat. Mm. And back in the day, and so we're talking, we must be talking the 1930s now. there were three gentlemen who used to race each other in their boats, and this was during World War II, where you weren't really supposed to do that, so they were doing it quietly, let's say, and I don't think there was a lot going on in Pittwater in the 40s. Anyway, one of the gentlemen, who was Norwegian, Sverre Berg, had a very solid boat that was not very competitive in the light airs or the calm waters of. It was really an ocean-going boat, and so he wasn't doing as well as he'd liked in these races, and was always keen for the races to be longer and more offshore.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, in 1945, I think they had a visit by a English captain, Mr. John Illingworth, and they were chatting about having a cruise down the coast or something, and apparently, as history has it, this captain said, well, why don't you make a race of it and go to Hobart? And they did.
Uh-huh.
So that's how the Sydney to Hobart started.
Wow.
And Sverre was one of the first Commodores, and the three of these guys actually formed the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. So, they get all the glory of, running the Sydney to Hobart and the rest of it. But,
Yeah.
it's nice to know that, little old sleepy Pittwater actually had quite a bit to do.
Part in the institution.
In the institution, to the point that, the main meeting room at the CYC is called the Coasters Retreat Room.
Oh,
so
there you go, a bit of trivial history there.
There you go.
Fascinating. I didn't realise that Pittwater was so integral to Sydney Harbour and racing, and especially the Sydney to Hobart.
Yeah, look, Northern Beaches, we're very into our surfers and the rest of it, but actually we should be incredibly proud of our sailors who are just dominating on the global scene. The America's Cup's on at the moment.
Yes.
I think there are 4 boats remaining. I think 3 of those boats are skippered by Australians.
Oh,
right?
Good to hear.
Not that Australia's got a flag on any of those boats. They're all dual skippers. But, Jimmy Spithill, Pittwater boy,
You.
first learned to sail at Avalon, steering Luna Rossa,
Yeah.
and 2 others, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose Australians got a good reputation. They apply to any crew over there, and it's like, you're in.
Aussies and Kiwis,
right,
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Do you have a competitive streak? I'd imagine there are people in the Pittwater that compete.
Oh, So we, as sailors, we always have a joke. As soon as you get 2 yachts on the water,
The race is on.
you got to race. Yeah. And because sailing's all about, trimming the sails and getting the boat to go, and there's nothing more satisfying than overtaking a bigger, more expensive boat than your own. So yes, there's always something going on.
Yeah, right. And what about the trophy cabinet at Avalon? Is there such a thing? And do you have any contribution to it?
Oh, look, we have actually a glorious trophy cabinet because, a lot of these things go back to the 40s. And the kids' names are on them, and
nice.
I've got my name on a couple of them as well.
Oh, have you now?
It's all about the what do we say? It's all about the participating.
That's right. That's right. Competition will always be there, though. That's always the underlying factor, isn't it?
Yeah. Look, it is, and to be honest, I always encourage when people come to the club and I just want to go cruising, and I say, look, join the racing. It's competitive, but it's friendly, and because you are forced to sail a course around marks, you therefore have to, deal with the conditions and the rest of it. And it teaches you so much about your own boat and makes you a much better sailor. And,
yes, yeah.
And everybody wants to win, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of satisfaction.
There is a bit about that's right. Sunset sailing, is that all competition or is that the leisure?
Well, curiously, I think the races are always timed so that you get back at the club for sunset, you see.
Oh, is that what that's called?
You're talking about twilight racing.
Twilights, there you go.
Yeah, so look, during the week on Pittwater, I think probably every day a club is running twilight racing. And
Oh, yeah.
the idea with twilight racing is it's after work,
Yeah.
right? And in the summer when daylight savings is giving us long afternoons.
Yeah, right.
Look, the other thing I should also point out is, people always think yacht racing, it's about who gets over the line first, and I'm only going to win if I've got the fastest yacht. But the truth is nearly everything that goes on is run under a handicap system. And what that means is, and every boat has its own handicap, and that handicap gets adjusted after every race. It sort of goes into a black box.
So if you come first, you're at the back of the line for the next race?
No.
Not quite?
Not quite,
Oh, okay.
but it's an algorithm. We don't like algorithms, but actually this one works really well, right? And the idea, really the way the algorithm is designed is that every boat has an equal chance of winning the race. And so, it doesn't matter what boat you have. You can come out and race and you've got just as much chance of winning as anybody else.
Yeah. Everybody is welcome to be part of this too.
Correct, yes.
You're listening to Radio Northern Beaches, 88.7 and 90.3, and I have been interviewing Ralf Moller from Avalon Sailing Club about just the wonderful opportunities that are out there for us locals on the Pittwater. So I'd have to ask you, Ralf, how can people get involved with the Avalon Sailing Club? Can you just turn up or book online? How does it go?
Yeah, look, I think the best thing is come down and see us. Have a look, see if it's the kind of place for you. Almost certainly is, especially if you're from Avalon or Clareville. We sail on Sundays, so, it's kids in the morning, it's adults in the afternoon. So, come down with your kids in the morning or the afternoon. Yep. All the information's online. There is literally heaps of information online about everything we do.
Okay.
And you can just go online and sign up for membership and a course.
Gotcha.
But usually best to come down and see us first and have a chat about what's the best way to go.
And how long would it take a novice to learn how to sail?
So it's very age dependent, okay? Young kids, like we take the youngest kids are about 5 years old.
Wow.
And I would say, kids between the age of 5 and, let's just call them primary school age kids, they just want to have fun, right? And we are very successful with teaching them and retaining them, and that's mainly because we don't push them too fast.
Yeah.
Right? And they have a lot of fun. So typically those young kids will do a year in our Learn to Sail. Their second year, they'll look to buy a boat or partner up with somebody in a boat and learn more sailing skills. Learn how to, sail around marks, set up spinnakers.
Yep. And
in their third year, they'll start racing. Adults are going to learn a lot quicker than that, or teenagers.
Yep.
They could learn. You could be off sailing your little boat on your own after a few sessions.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. And what does the club supply? Just a slip, or what do you get?
You get everything. So as a learner, we literally supply everything. So obviously the boat, we've got life jackets. We even supply sunscreen.
Oh, yes.
But you should bring your own clothes.
Yes, that would help. A cap, a sun hat, something.
Sun hat, wetsuit, depending what time of the year, and the rest of it. And, some enthusiasm.
So what's your best advice for someone who's thinking about learning to sail?
Look, go to the local sailing clubs in your area and see what they have to offer. And, we actually have four that I can think of, sailing clubs on Pittwater. So, there's Avalon, Byra, which is down at Bayview.
Yes.
They're quite similar to us.
Yeah.
And, then you've got the Royal Prince Alfred and the Royal Motor.
Yeah, of course.
And, they're very different style clubs, right? So it kind of, what is it that you're looking for? Go and check out the clubs. See which of the clubs has, the vibe that you're looking for. We're very much... family-oriented, volunteer.
Yep.
Everybody, participates and gets involved.
Look, it's been fascinating getting to know about the Sailing Club, and Ralf, it's always a pleasure talking with you. So thank you for sharing your story with our listeners, and thanks, listeners, for joining us. Paradise on the Pittwater with the Avalon Sailing Club. So thank you, Ralf. I've learnt a lot today. You're listening to Radio Northern Beaches. Did you enjoy your time here?
Oh, look, great to be on here, and thanks so much for having me.
Australia, the lucky country. We've got meat pies. We've got the world's best beer. But most importantly, top of the list, we've got Radio Northern Beaches 88.7, 90.3. Now hitting the entire world on www.rmb.org.au.